This April 17th meeting of the Senate Finance Committee will come to order. On the agenda, we have Senate File 5116, Senator Herr, Omnibus Legacy Appropriations Bill. Welcome to the Senate Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for giving me all the attention today, giving me a solo on bill hearing in the Bill Committee. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, can I just go ahead with the
Please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Marty and members of the Finance Committee. In front of you is Senate File 5116, which is the 2024 Senate Omnibus Legacy Bill. In 2008, the Legacy Amendment was passed to protect our drinking water resources, restore our wetlands, prairies, forests, and fish, game, and wildlife habitat, preserve arts and culture heritage, support parks and trails, and enhance and restore lakes, rivers, stream, and groundwater. The Legacy Amendment Fund is divided into 4 buckets, with 33% of the total going to the Clean Water Fund, 33% to the Outdoor Heritage Fund, 19.75% to the Arts and Culture Heritage Fund, and 14.25% to the Park and Trail Fund. The Article 1 of this bill includes recommendation from the La Star Sam Outdoor Heritage Council. This council is made up of 12 members, 4 legislators, and 8 citizens who are tasked with making annual recommendations to the legislature on how to spend the Outdoor Heritage Fund. The recommendation this year add up to $180.711 million with 47 projects. The Article 2 of this bill talks about the Clean Water Fund with appropriation at $25.426 billion. It contains recommendation from the Clean Water Council and some allocation for Senate members' priorities, including the 50 years Clean Water Plan. The Clean Water Council is a 28-member committee composed of state agency, House and Senate majority and minority members, and representatives from organizations dealing with clean water issues. The Article 3 of this bill contains parks and trail provisions where we uphold the agreement of 40% of the dollars go to the Metro Regional Park and Trails, and 40% to the State Park and Trails, and 20% go to the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails. This year total budget for Park and Trails is $9.10 million. The Metropolitan Council is the fiscal agent for regional parks and trails within the 7th County Metro, and the DNR is the fiscal agent for state parks and trails and Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails. The Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trail Commission makes grant recommendation to the DNR for non-metro projects. And Article 4 is the Arts and Culture Heritage Fund items with total budget of $12.209 million. We retain the statutory requirement of 47% appropriation to the State Arts Board, which is $5.738 million this year, and a subtotal of $3.695 million goes to the Senate members' request as direct appropriation, and $2.7 million is allocated as competitive grant program under Community Identity and Heritage overseen by the Minnesota Humanities Center. This is my summary of the 2024 Senate Omnibus Legacy Amendment Bill, and I ask for your support, members. Besides Director Mark Johnson of the Outdoor Heritage Council, Mr. Mueller is also here and stand by should question become more in depth. So I thank you for your support.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we have Mr. Mueller go through the spreadsheet? If not, welcome to the committee, and please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'll be working through the 4-page or 5-page spreadsheet, the Senate Omnibus Legacy Bill. As Senator Hurd mentioned, there are 4 articles in the bill, and these are correspond to the 4 legacy funds. The first one is the Outdoor Heritage Fund. This is the first 2 pages of the spreadsheet. I will not go through each of the projects. As Senator Hurd mentioned, there is staff here from the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council that can answer specific questions on the particular projects. I'll remind members that the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council gives recommendations each year on legacy funds, as opposed to the other legacy funds where we use biannual appropriations. Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council gives recommendations for each the fiscal year. So that's why you see a complete proposal here for fiscal year 25. So the Article 1 contains, on line 14, $19.4 million for projects that are under the prairie category. Line 22, there's about $32.2 million for a forest. And line 33, there's $38.4 million for wetlands. Then on the next page, under the habitat category, there's $89.3 million. And then on line 69, there's $1.4 million for administration. This brings the total spending in the bill for this article to $180.7 million. And currently, you'll see on line 73, each of the funds has a 5% reserve requirement. And with that 5% reserve, there's still $12.149 million available to spend to get to that reserve. And there is an amendment posted that would add $12 million to the bill that we'll get to, I'm sure, after getting through the spreadsheet. Next, we have Article 2, the Clean Water recommendations. As Senator Hurd mentioned, this is based largely on the recommendations from the Clean Water Council. On line 89 is $4 million for the Department of Agriculture, and a lot of these proposals here deal with the nitrate issue in southeast Minnesota. On line 96 of the spreadsheet is $4.65 million for the Pollution Control Agency, and on line 94 and 95, you see the 2 projects here that Senator Hurd mentions are from Senate initiatives. One's for testing effluent wastewater from on line 94 for $500,000, and then Friends of the Minnesota River Valley River Watch on line 95 for $150,000. Next, we have a DNR proposal as their total of $90,000 from the Clean Water Fund. On the next page, page 3, is Board of Water and Soil Resources. Their total is $9.485 million. Next, we have the Department of Health, and their total is $1.3 million. Again, you'll see on line 108 that most of the money here is dealing with the southeast Minnesota nitrate response. And then lastly is the University of Minnesota. Their total is $5.9 million. And you'll see on line 113, $5.4 million of that is for the 50-year Clean Water Plan. The total spending on the Clean Water Fund is $25.426 million, and that is right at the 5% reserve amount. Next, we have Article 3, Parks and Trails. That starts on line 129 of the spreadsheet. As Senator Hurd mentioned, this allocates the $9.1 million that was available and splits it 40% for state parks, 20% for outstate regional parks, and then 40% for metropolitan parks. And this follows the same ratio that the legacy funds have been allocated in the past. Lastly, on the page 4 of the spreadsheet, the Arts and Culture Heritage Fund, you'll see on line 158, the total for the State Arts Board is $5.738 million. This is 47% of the amount appropriated in the article that is required by statute. That 47% go to the State Arts Board. Starting on line 159, Department Administration. Under the Department Administration is where a lot of the specific projects that Senator Herr mentioned are appropriated. I will not go through each of them here, but the total for all the separate proposals here is $1.845 million. On line 171, the Minnesota Humanities Center, there's a community identity and heritage grants is currently at, on line 173, at $2.7 million. And then there's 2 other projects here, bringing that total to $3.776 million for Humanities Center. Then the last one under the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund is Minnesota Historical Society. There are 4 different proposals here, and they total $850,000. So the total spending from the Arts and Culture Heritage Fund is $12.209 million, and this again is right at the 5% fund balance that is required in statute. I will mention that lastly on the last page, I'll put in my annual plug for the Legacy Amendment website, where you'll find information on all past years' appropriations and grants that go out through all the 4 funds, including the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund also has their information on that website. And there's also information on how to apply for funds from the various agencies that receive money here from these legacy funds. And with that, I'm done with the spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Are there questions from the committee? There are further comments from Senator Herr before we have amendments, I believe.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any further comments.
Okay, thank you. Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mueller or Senator Senator Herr, do we have an estimate of how many acres are being bought with the dollars that go towards wetlands or other land acquisitions? Can you give us an approximate number?
Thank you, Senator Westrom. I'll call Mr. Mark Johnson to give you a closer estimate than my guessing.
Mr. Johnson, welcome to the committee. Did you hear the question?
Mr. Chair, yes, I did. Mr. Chair, for the record, my name is Mark Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council. And thank you, Mr. Westrom, Senator Westrom, for the question. There are a couple of different avenues of acquisition within the bill as normal. One is protect in fee with PILT. And of those acres, that's where it would come under state ownership, so PILT would be applicable afterwards. There are 13,997 acres anticipated to be acquired through this appropriation with outdoor heritage funds. For protect and fee without PILT, which means they would go to counties or potentially Fish and Wildlife Service or some other local unit of government, there are 9,650 acres. And then there's a protect and easement, which is about 7,700 acres. I should mention that most of those acres for with PILT and without PILT fee acquisition are included in one of the appropriations itself, and that is the Minnesota Heritage Forest project, and that's where about 10,000 acres are expected to be acquired as state forest by the DNR, and about 9,000 acres, I think roughly, are anticipated to be acquired by counties in northern Minnesota for county forest. So the county forest would be without PILT, and the state forest would be with PILT.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Johnson, thank you for that information. The 10,000 acres of state forest, is any of that, is there any relationship to that land and some of the efforts that been going on to turn land back around the White Earth, to the White Earth Reservation or the Red Lake Reservation around Red Lake. I'm guessing those are different issues and efforts, but is there any connection with some of this money going to either of those areas or purchases that would potentially be attempted to turn over than if the state owned it?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, no, those are separate issues. These would be, these lands are specifically owned by the Conservation Fund currently, and they are actually the old potlatch lands, and generally in north central and northeastern Minnesota.
Further questions from the committee? If not, amendments, I believe there are some in the packets. Those who have amendments. Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I hope that this is the correct place, but I have the A8 amendment.
Senator Champion moves the A8 amendment, and I believe that may be in our packets.
Yes.
Very bottom of my packet. Go ahead, Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have had a previous conversation with Senator Herr about this. This is a allocation to the Capri Theater, which is a very well-known theater in my district that also provides enriching youth and arts and adult arts programming and educational offerings for youth, families, and emerging and accomplished artists. And so we are asking for a $200,000 allocation to be provided to the Capri Theater. And I hope, and I believe this will be considered a friendly amendment because we did talk about it way before now, and this was the best place in order to offer this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Champion. Senator Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion. I'll accept this as a friendly amendment. Senator Champion did talk to me early on this session, and this is a busy session that we couldn't get our bill draft on time, and so it was the bill that I anticipate to give hearing to during the Legacy Committee, but it just passed that line. I've been putting a placeholder for it to anticipate that it will be here. So I'm glad Senator Champion, our language is here, and I will accept that as a friendly amendment. Ask member to.
Is there further discussion on Senator Champion's A8 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Senator Pappas and then Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the A11 amendment.
That is also, I believe, in the packets. Senator Pappas, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This is a recommendation from the Dallas Sams Committee that they came up with another $12 million, and I've discussed this with Senator Herr that they would like to put the money toward the structural deterrent for invasive carp at Lock and Dam number 5.
Senator
Appreciate
Herr.
your support.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pappas, for bringing this amendment forth. I accept it as a friendly amendment, and I also want to thank the LaSalle Sam Outdoor Heritage Council for finding this dollars so as to be expedient on the carp deterrent, which I'm a proponent of. So Mr. Mark Johnson is also here in case question arise from this amendment.
Mr. Johnson, did you want to comment on it, or?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Forgot in my comments to mention that I first got interested in the issue of invasive carp when maybe a decade ago I saw YouTube videos of carps jumping in rivers and knocking over people in boats. They're huge. And then I've actually taken 2 field trips to see what the DNR is doing to capture carp. Local fishermen are doing that. And also I visited Lock and Dam 5 with my Capital Investment Committee to see what a potential there is for a structural deterrent. So I have a strong interest in this issue, and I'm very excited that this money was found to be able to proceed with this project.
Is there further, Senator Dames?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Herr. Can you tell me why this was not included in the original bill?
Mr. Johnson or Senator Herr?
Sure. Mr. Johnson can talk about that a little further. The proposal was requested through a different jurisdiction, under a different jurisdiction, so it wasn't part of the legacy or the environmental budget, but I'll pass the question to Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Meyer from DNR, did you want to comment on this, or you looked like you were trying to?
Whatever you're ready.
If you have comments on this after Mr. Johnson's comments.
Mr. Chair and Senator Dames, good question. Previously, a proposal had not come before the council. With the February forecast and the extra 12.1 million available, then there was a proposal quickly.
Mr. Chair, could you ask the witness to get a little closer, please?
Mr. Johnson, can you move the mic a little bit closer?
My
Thank you.
apology.
And speak loud.
So previous, through the fall and December, when the council was making recommendations, there wasn't, a proposal for this was not before the council. The council had heard testimony on it a year prior and had also looked at the CARP. I think there's a report from the University of Minnesota in November of 22, and they came before us in December of 23 to give a presentation on that. But a presentation for a proposal had not come before us. With the extra monies, with the February forecast of $12 million, that created an opportunity, and this proposal came before us with an exceptional meeting that we had in, not an emergency meeting, but it was an exceptional meeting in April, or early March, I'm sorry, mid-March. Asked the council to review it. They did. There was unanimous support of the council to apply these, or to recommend application of these funds for this project.
Please go ahead.
Were there other proposals brought up that day?
Mr. Chair, Senator Dames, there were no other projects brought for additional funding. There was a proposal which is also in the, at the end of the A11 amendment, which asked for, it was for the restoration of Upper Mississippi and Lake Pepin, and that asked for just an extension of their funding, which the council also recommends granting.
Thank you.
Mr. Meyer, did you want to briefly comment on the A11?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, Bob Meyer, Assistant Commissioner, Department of Natural Resources, and thank you for the opportunity just to briefly provide some comments on this language. And thank you, Senator Pappas, for offering the amendment, Senator Herr, and the Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage Council. We fully support the language. I just want to bring up a couple quick points for you all to make sure everybody understands. You can see on lines 1.13 to 1.14 that this appropriation will be worked or spent with our federal partners such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, also the Army Corps of Engineers and the United States Geological Survey. So we're really excited about that. Had a great conversation in Lessard-Sams Commission. The language that I want to just bring to your attention is on lines 1.19 to 1.23 that says the deterrent design must be fully completed within 2 years, and then the installation must be completed within 5 years, basically. This is a project we are working with our federal partners on. It is being installed at a federal location. We have no control over the property. So these timelines are somewhat out of our control. We are doing our best to make sure this is done expeditiously as possible. We're working with the Corps of Engineers and others on design work right now, but a lot of this is out of our control, and I want to put that on the record today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion on A11? Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Meyer, how many million do you expect this to cost? This is $12 million. That's a ton of money. How much are the other partners putting in, and so how much is this project going to cost overall? It just seems exorbitantly expensive.
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, that is a good question, one that we will know more of once the design is out and developed. We think we may need more money in the future, But the other point that we do not have any idea of is the operational cost of this facility, which will need to be brought to the legislature for funding at that point in time.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Meyer, is there federal money already allocated to this? Or are we the only ones putting money into it as a state? And
Mr. Chair.
it's just
Senator
amazing we
Westrom,
wouldn't have a little bit of an idea. I mean, do we think we're halfway there? Do we think 15 million will do it? Are we getting into a $50 million commitment here? Just, do we have any sort of range or idea?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, there are no other funding sources allocated to this project at this time. We are discussing with our federal partners and also the state of Wisconsin. Hopefully some will come to the table. As far as the cost estimates, there have been some preliminary work that ranged from roughly $7 to $14 million, depending on whether it was a lease to own or directly installed. I don't think it'll be a lot more than 12 to $14 million, but as we all know, contracting and building things are in a fluid state right now. So we want to make sure it's done the right way and the most cost-effective way as well. And as we get the design documents developed, we will have a better price, a cost estimate, so to speak, on that, which we can work with folks to make sure that people are understanding of that.
Senator Westrom, you're done?
Mr. Chair, so Mr. Meyer, it's hard to kind of keep track of all these trap carps and carp traps and that. I know LCCMR has funded several projects to try and stop carp through the U of M, and I think some through the DNR. This is just one trap? Can you explain it a little bit more? One trap, and is that going to really help us in stopping this on most of the Mississippi, or is this just one trap and every mile or 10 miles we put more traps in? Because it seems like we've been funding traps and other types of efforts to stop the carp for all 10 years I've been on the LCCMR, and now this is another source of funding. So it's starting to, are we going to get ahead of it, or are we just putting money and it's something we can't stop anyways?
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, there have been other projects that have been funded. You mentioned some LCCMR projects. The Lessard-Sams Council also funded funds for a barrier located at Spirit Lake, Iowa, to prevent carp from moving into Minnesota, which is very effective. There are also several deterrents within the Mississippi River, one in Kentucky, one in Iowa, that the federal partners they've installed and are researching and learning from those facilities. And also, it's not a trap. It's a deterrent, bioacoustic bubble wall, basically, sound and bubbles using the deterrent. But to make it most effective, as Senator Pappas mentioned, we need to use an integrated carp management approach. There is trapping, there is tagging. We have carp tagged with monitors that we have state-of-the-art technology, remote kayaks that can track them around and chase them into our nets. So it's really deterring them from moving forward. It's capturing and removing them at the sites of these deterrents and managing them with a all-hands-on-deck approach. It's a very serious issue and one that we want to try to get in front of as much as possible.
Senator Draheim on this issue.
Thank you, Chair. My question just had to do with the date, the 2-year date. So you think that should be 3 years, or what? I mean, what? I know you're dealing with other partners you can't control, but what is realistic on that date?
Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim, I think the design piece isn't as much as a concern as the actual construction. I can't give you a date on what that is, but like I said, the design should be done within a year and a half. But there are things out of our control. The construction, as long as we would prefer some language completed as feasibly possible, as soon as feasibly possible, or something like that. I can't give you a date right now. The construction needs to occur in the wintertime. It needs to, so we have the elements of the environment as well. You need to draw down the facility. Put a sheet metal barrier around there to put the construction in, I believe. So some flexibility is what we're searching for. I can work with the author and others and the author of the amendment as the bill moves forward to come up with some language if so desired.
Senator Drahan?
Thank you. If it's 5 years out, we would have time to come back next year.
Most
and adjust it. I was just curious what your thoughts were. Thank you.
Further discussion on the A11 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Senator Mohammed, did you have a amendment? You raised your hand earlier.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have the A9 amendment.
And members, that looks like it's in our packets as well. The A9 amendment. On the amendment,
The A9 amendments basically change who administrates the grant from the Department of Administration to the Department of Humanity Center. I believe this was a bill that was introduced by Senator Umu Verbatim that was heard in committee, and I believe that the Chair Funker knows about it as well.
Senator Herb.
Mr. Chair, I accept this as a friendly amendment. We already heard this provision in committee. It's just a matter of redirecting which agency will be the fiscal agent.
Is there further discussion on the A9 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Further amendments, Senator Pappas and then Senator Pappas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry. I have the A14 amendment.
A14 amendment is in the packets. Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, this amendment has been in consultation with both Senator Pa and Senator Herr, that on the last page of the bill, there is competitive grants to a variety of Southeast Asian communities, the Lao, Cambodian, Vietnamese, and Hmong, and it's to broaden the purpose for the grants, which would include to commemorate the 50th year anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War and the secret war in Laos, as well as the 50 years of Southeast Asians in Minnesota. And I appreciate your support.
Is there any discussion on that amendment? Senator Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if Senator Pa's here, and I believe Senator Pappas and Senator Pa and I already have discussion where three of us have an agreement. So I would, if she's not here, I would say I will agree with this as friendly amendment.
And Senator Pa was here, but I don't see her now. I think she had to go to another committee. So is there further discussion on the amendment? Senator Champion.
Mr. Chair, let me say how I believe the 50th anniversary that's coming up is a very important event and an opportunity to really celebrate. I am concerned about the fact that there seems to be some controversy within the community around this event. You got the Asian Council, who has a proposal, and there appears to be, has one set of ideas as to how things should go in representing a segment of the community. And then you have Senator Pa's bill that represents another side of the community, along with the electeds. I am one who feels conflicted about this approach that is being taken, not because I should make the decision, I shouldn't make the decision, but I feel like we're being put in a position to make a decision as to which side we want to fall along. And maybe I should ask this question first to Senator Herr. Senator Herr, is there any other bill or any other place where the council's event is being planned or funded?
Senator Herr.
Mr. Chair and Senator Champion, not that I know of, and not in this bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Champion, I think we are trying to have some kind of agreement, and there is another amendment that Senator Pratt's offering. So there are actually kind of three different approaches here. One is the Department of Veterans Affairs is doing a 3-day commemoration at the Mall of America in June because the federal government has determined there's a 12-year window in order to commemorate the end of the Vietnam War, and that is being, I think, supported with federal funds. And that they have included all these different ethnic groups in that celebration. The second approach is this competitive grant program for various Southeast Asian communities to be able to commemorate both the end of the Vietnam War as well as the 50 years in the U.S. And then, if I'm not giving it away, Senator Pratt also has an amendment that would support the fall of 25 commemoration at Holman Field, which the council has been planning.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Champion.
And thank you, Senator Pappas, for that information. That's my point. My point is I shouldn't be making the decision as to voting for one now and another later, and because it sends the wrong message even for my constituents. Because in my district, I unfortunately have heard about this conflict, where I represent Lao, Vietnamese, Hmong, others. And so for us to have an amendment that you, Senator Pappas, is putting forward only inserts the one side of it, and there's nothing that provides revenue even for the council itself. So they can all have their celebration without us deciding who should receive and who
Right.
shouldn't.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Champion, my explanation is that's the point, is we're trying to support all the ethnic groups that want to celebrate, as well as the American veterans. So there, with this multi-approach, I think we can satisfy everyone.
And Senator, Mr. Chair, may I
Go
continue?
ahead, Senator Champion. Go ahead.
And Senator Pappas, I don't want to, because you know I have great respect for you, because you've been just a wonderful colleague, and I don't want to have this debate in public, because I was hoping that we would not be having this debate in public, and that there would be a way to have some agreement, so when it was brought forward, that we all could unify and that we all could be together. So I do think it's important for all the various perspectives to be put forward. So that is my opinion, and I would hope that Senator Pappas would withdraw this amendment, and then so that the parties can work out what should happen, so all of them are being respected and supported, and for us not to have to make a decision, because then you'll put me in an uncomfortable position, and I don't want your amendment to fail.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Chairman and Senator Champion. I am under the impression that this is an agreed-upon amendment. And I think Senator Pratt will actually add kind of some honey to the pot with his amendment. So when you look at the language, we're offering grants to all 4 Southeast Asian communities, and including their ability to celebrate the end of the Vietnam War. And I don't think there's any controversy around my particular amendment.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Champion.
then Senator Pappas, show me where your amendment would allow for the Asian Council's proposal to go forth, not just the various groups, the Asian Council's proposal to go forward.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Champion, that is coming in the Pratt Amendment, which I support.
So then perhaps we should withdraw this amendment until we get the Pratt Amendment, and then it would be duly in order, because then we could see that all are being represented and not just some.
Mr. Chairman, that's fine with me. I withdraw the A14 amendment.
Senator Pappas withdraws the A14th amendment. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer the A16 amendment.
Senator Pratt offers the A16.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for the not having this available for members. It came together very, very quickly after a conversation with Senator Hur this morning. But, Mr. Chair, what this does is this spends an additional...
Mr. Chair, we do not have the amendment, and so could we wait and
Sure,
see it?
Senator Pratt will wait, I guess so. Just now getting it distributed.
Thank you.
Just go on to that.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I saw scrambling, and I thought everybody
Yes,
had it.
no, that's okay. Please proceed now. I think everybody has them, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this was an amendment I discussed with Senator Hur earlier this morning. Allocates an additional $150 or $150,000 to commemorate or for a joint commemoration program on the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, the secret war in Laos, and the Southeast Asian conflict. And Senator Champion, to your point, it recognizes and honors the contributions of the Vietnamese, Lao, Cambodia, Hmong, and Minnesota veterans. As we've discussed many times, there are, really 5 constituencies here that were deeply impacted by this conflict. And having a statewide commemoration of this event, I think is warranted. And so I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions for the author.
Sure. Go ahead, Senator Champion.
Senator Pratt, have you discussed this with the Asian Council?
Mr. Chair, Senator Champion, yes, I have discussed it with the Asian Council. This is essentially the Senator Mitchell bill that the Asian Council had prepared with some changes that Senator Hur had requested. The main difference is we've cut the money in half from a $300,000 ask down to $150,000 with the expectation, and I've discussed it with the executive director, that we believe we can raise the other half of the money from private funds. And we've made some other minor changes, but this is effectively a variation of the Senator Mitchell bill that would be agreeable.
Senator Champion.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that I understand what Senator Pratt is saying. This is essentially their bill, but it appears that you are lowering the amount from $300,000 to $150,000. And so, Senator Pratt, 2 questions. Did the Asian Council say that lowering that amount and then putting the onus on them in order to raise the money would be acceptable? And what impact would lowering the amount have on the event and on the groups if they were unable to raise the balance of the $150,000?
Senator Hur.
That's to Senator Pratt, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Senator Pratt and Senator Hur wanted to comment on that question as well, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question, Senator Champion. So a couple of thoughts. One, I have talked to the executive director of the council, and they do believe they can raise private funds to cover the cost. And it's my understanding that with the changes that Senator Pappas will be proposed and tabled, those monies may be used to supplement this funding as well. So by adding in the allowable use for the commemoration of the 50th anniversary, the individual communities can contribute to that event as well and have a say in how it goes.
And Mr. Chair, I think you would. I do have another question, but I'll wait.
Sure. We'll get back to Senator Champion, but Senator Hur.
Mr. Chair and Senator Champion and Senator Pappas and Senator Pratt, all members, all due respect, and I know that this is a topic that we need probably a more longer time in discussion, and when this bill came to my committee, the discussion was non-controversial, but I know it's boiling up, and from my standpoint, and I like to offer maybe not accepting any amendment of this on this at all, and let the bill go as the language as it is, because there's still, and I will put that into consideration as we go to conference so that it's thought through, because if we want to make amendment today with this Pappas, Pratt, even though those are good amendment and with question from Senate Champion, if we make decisions so quickly, put the language here, we may shoot ourselves in the foot in terms of technicality. So I ask members in good faith to trust me to take this bill, pass the floor, go to conference, and trying to bring peace in Valley in that sense.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt, then back to Senator Champion then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just to Senator Herr's request, Mr. Chair, this is $150,000 in new money. It's not taking away from any of the other priorities that Senator Herr has identified. And if we pass this bill out of finance to the floor and allow it to go to the conference committee, we'll have to be trading off various projects in order to pay for this event. My hope was that we could allocate an extra $150,000 in this committee without impacting any other projects. And so, Senator Herr, I'm going to respectfully not withdraw my amendment, just because once it gets to the floor, it follows the omnibus rules, and we won't be able to add any additional funds to the bill.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Champion.
Mr. Chair, one, I think that we should always respect an author when they ask for something to be withdrawn. That's number one. Number two, I do think it's responsible and respectful of Senator Herr, because no one is saying that we don't want it to be funded. That's not what anyone is saying. What we're saying is that there needs to be an agreement between the parties to make sure that each one can get and have the respect that they deserve. That's it. It is not to pick one side or another. If there was enough money, then give the Asian Council theirs, and then the other members who have their own bills theirs. Fine. I'm not suggesting that I should make that decision, but I should not be put in a position where we are deciding without there being the required amount of time to come up with an agreement that makes sense. So when it comes to us, that it is respectful and everyone feels included, and not being put in a position where one is funded and another is saying that we can raise money, even though I think the intentions are good. So with that being said, I would ask that you withdraw the amendment and respect the author, or I would ask that we have a roll call vote.
Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, at the risk of repeating myself, I think that was really my attempt with my amendment, which is not before us, is to the council then would be able to also apply for a competitive grant to commemorate the 50-year anniversary. So with a Pratt amendment or not, that still would be an option for the council. And I know there's been foundations that have indicated an interest in supporting the council. The council has raised money for their annual dinner before, significant dollars. So I think they will be able to move forward with their celebration at home and field, with or without the Pratt amendment.
And Mr. Chair, I just have one last thing. Senator Pratt is articulating with clarity what would happen from his vantage point if it goes to conference. There's still time in order for the Senate to maintain control of this bill before it passes the floor and goes to a conference committee. Unless Senator Pratt is suggesting that there is an inability for the parties to get together and come up with a viable option that leads us all forward together. So I believe that Senator Herr will work with, or at least create space for, the various parties to get together and figure out what needs to happen. And before we get on the floor, if there is peace in the valley, for lack of a better word, then we can take it up at that particular time before it goes into conference. And I want to reiterate, my pushback is not because I don't think we should do it. We certainly should do it. And if we have to fund both, then that's what we certainly should think about. But we should not be in a position of deciding on a whim how this process should happen. And I think that we should support Senator Herr, because I do think that he's been the responsible leader and the responsible person to say, hey, it requires a little more time. And so with that being said, that is what I will proposed. And Mr. Chair, thank you for your patience this morning.
Thank you. Senator Pratt on the A.
Thank you,
16.
Mr. Chair. Well, Senator Champion, as you well know, once this omnibus bill gets to the floor, any changes have to balance. We can't change the bottom line. This is our only opportunity to change the bottom line by adding new money. However, I have the assurances of my colleagues sitting next to me that we will continue to work this out and find a resolution. And with that, Mr. Chair, and with that promise, I will go ahead and withdraw the A16 amendment.
Senator Pratt withdraws A16 amendment. Are there other amendments? Senator Pappas.
Mr. Chairman, then I would reoffer the A14 amendment, which I thought was a kind of collaborative agreement amendment. And again, I don't think there's any controversy with this.
Senator Pappas reoffers the A14 amendment. Discussion on that. Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Senator Pappas. I would ask that we all oppose the A14, not because we don't agree with it, but because there's a process that's already been spelled out that the parties will go through. And yes, it does include the A14 as a part of that discussion. And I would sincerely hope that my colleague would withdraw the A14 and not put everyone in the same position that we just so eloquently talked to. So thank you.
Senator Pratt, I'm sorry, Senator Champion, I'm sorry, but I do not believe that this is a problem amendment. I believe that everyone thinks that they should have the opportunity to celebrate the 50th year anniversary. I've discussed this with the council, with Senator Paz, Senator Herr, so I would like to proceed with the A14 amendment.
Senator Herr.
Mr. Chair, good discussion. The discretion is in this committee on Senator Pappas, but I did agree and support Senator Pappas because I saw the language beforehand, but I did make a statement as the debate was going on, and I want to stick to my word that I asked members to withdraw, all the amendment related to this, and I can go forward with a clean bill, and perhaps we can talk on the floor, or even though if it passed on the floor, we still had time to bring peace in the valley during conferencing. And while we make any changes, I just want to also mention that if we take any amendment on it, although Senator Pappas' bill doesn't, but it will change the budget a little bit in terms of our reserve. And
Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw the A14 amendment.
Senator Pappas withdraws A14 amendment with the understanding this is going to be worked out later. Is there further discussion, Senator Dames?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Herr, can you tell me, obviously, if this doesn't happen today, it's going to happen on the floor. Where are you going to get the money from? Where are you going to take the money from in order to make this happen to the extent that these amendments we have presented today that have been withdrawn, where's that money going to come from? You have to keep it balanced, so it has to come from someplace else.
There's a possibility that we can tap into the Cultural Heritage Competitive Grant. We have a reserve of, right now, as I take the number of amendments, Senator Champion being one, that amount has dropped down to $2.5 million, so we could certainly work with that dollars there.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Dames.
And Senator Herr, would you commit to do that?
The answer will not be absolute because I still have to, have discussion with various stakeholders and make sure that there's peace in the valley. But if peace in the valley require budget, I will consider it.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Follow up, Senator Dames.
So what I'm hearing is there's a possibility that to honor the memorial, to honor the veterans of the Vietnamese War, that may not happen because you're not going to commit to take the money, so it may not happen because of that circumstance. And I think that's really unfortunate that we're missing the opportunity we have today. I think Senator Pappas and Senator Pratt have both brought up two very good amendments. And I think that you had agreed with Senator Pappas you would support that amendment. And now here's where we're at. So I'm a little disappointed in the way this is working out, and I think it's, I'm really just disappointed to see that this is the way we're going to handle this, but thank you.
For Senator Herb.
Thank you, Senator Dame. I appreciate you bring that up. And the decision is with this community alone. My preference is different, but for sure, in the language itself and the legacy omnibus amendment itself, we will celebrate the 50-year anniversary. It's in the bill now. It's just a matter of how broad or how many party we want to be part of it, and or how much budget we want to appropriate to it. But you know, just to make correction to you, we are going to celebrate, and for sure, I will take the language of Senator Pratt amendment and Senator Pappas amendment, and not deviate much further than what it is here, going to the floor and also going to conference.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Champion.
Mr. Chair, I think that we are trying to figure out a way in order to make sure that there is revenue available so that when we go to the floor, that there is that money available. So I will offer that we increase the money for the Capri, which was the A8 amendment, increase it from 200,000 to 350,000. That way, if there's an agreement, that Senator Hurd can take that money on the floor, and he would be able to balance the money, as opposed to take it out of the reserve.
Senator Hurd.
Mr. Chair, Senator Champion, that I will ask you to withdraw. That will not be necessary because we put $2.5 million in reserve for in case that come around. We can take that money from the reserve.
Senator Champion, I think while you were having conversations, Senator and Mr. Mueller were saying they have $2.5 million that could be used for this already.
Sounds good.
Is there further discussion on this, the legislation period? Because I don't think we have any amendments in front of us right now. If not, Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and, you know, I appreciate the Majority Leader promising to work on this. It's, you know, I thought I had an agreement with Senator Hurd. I thought Senator Pappas had an agreement with Senator Hurd, and without any money to commemorate the end of the Vietnam War in this bill, leaving this committee, I just won't be able to support it. But I'm hoping that we can make the changes before it gets to the Senate floor, and it's something that we can vote in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? If not, Senator Friends moves Senate File 5116 as amended. Did we amend it, I think? Yes, we did. Yes, several times. Without being withdrawn, but Senate File 5116 as amended be recommended to pass, and a roll call has been requested. Is there any further discussion, any comments from Senator Hurd?
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate all the members. I know that it may not be to the liking as I agree initially, but by just observing the conversation here, I want this bill to pass as a whole, and I didn't want it to have the opportunity where amendment did not go through. So that's where, and I know may be upsetting to some member, but it's my regard for the best of this committee. And I ask for your support.
Thank you. Further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor roll call, sorry. All those, the staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty?
Aye.
Senator Friends?
Yes.
Senator Pratt? No. Senator Champion?
Aye.
Senator Dames? No. Senator Draheim?
No.
Senator Eichhorn? No. Senator Mohammed?
Yes.
Senator Murphy?
Yes.
Senator Pappas?
Pass.
Senator Westrom? No. Senator Wickland?
Yes.
Senator Pappas?
Yes.
With 7 votes in favor and 5 opposed, the motion does prevail. Thank you, Senator Herr and Mr. Mueller. For tomorrow, we're going to be taking up 2 firearms-related bills, and I want to remind the committee that our focus here is on the finance aspects of bills, not the policy, and we're not taking any public testimony on them, but we are considering 2 bills tomorrow, and I believe we have scheduled bills on Thursday as well. On Friday, we have a lot of bills on Friday. Senator Dames, did you have a question?
You know, Mr. Chair, we're going to be here on Friday. I really appreciate that we would use the days we have now to our advantage. If we're going to meet at 8:30, let's meet at 8:30. Yesterday, we lost about 35 to 40 minutes. Today, we've lost 15 to 20 minutes. We could be hearing other bills, and we could reduce the amount of time we're going to be here on Friday. So those of us that have a long way to travel to get back home could still do that. So I just appreciate that consideration. I don't think that's asking too much. If we're going to meet at a certain time, let's meet, let's have our officers here to present their bills, let's be here to hear the bills. Thank you.
It's a good point, Senator Dames. I'll ask. A lot of bills are coming up on Friday because that's when the deadline. We're getting the finance bills, and we're going to be in a big rush on major finance bills in the next few days coming up, beginning on Friday. But it is a good, important request that people try and be here on time. The so-called Senate time is not a good practice for this committee or any committee. So please try and get here on time. And with that, this committee is adjourned.